Hi guys, welcome to Mrs. Gurney's tutorials. Today we're going to be doing a Swiss roll. Okay, so it's a fatless sponge. So the only fat that goes into this is the eggs, okay, because there's obviously fat within those as well. So a few health and safety rules before we get started today. Number one, don't forget to wash your hands, okay, so hot soapy water, obviously with current restrictions and things, it's really important that we do keep that hygiene going, okay. The first thing that I really need you to do, so once you've washed your hands and you've got everything out and you're ready to go, the first thing we need to be doing is we need to be greasing our tin. So I've only got a small tin here because I'm not making a massive Swiss roll, okay, I just want to make a small one. So I've got my pastry brush with some butter on it, and I'm just going to put a small amount on there. Now I've got baking parchment. If you've got baking parchment, then a small amount of butter on your tray and then your baking parchment on top and then re-butter again so that it doesn't stick. You want to kind of give it the opportunity to come out of the tin really easily. If you haven't got baking parchment, then that's fine, but really double up on the butter on your tin so that it really does come out, and make sure that you're doing all of the sides, okay, because these are the bits, and into the corners, these are the bits where it's going to stick, okay, into the corners there, on the edges. Right, make sure it's really well greased. If you hold it into the light, you should be able to see where the butter is, okay. Right, so I'm going to use my baking parchment, so I'm just going to pop that on top, okay, I'm just going to smooth it into the corners and just curl it over. Okay, and that's my tin nearly ready. I'm just going to put a small amount of butter up around the edges and into the corners, okay, just to make sure that it really does come out of that tin and off that paper. Now, because it's a fatless sponge as well, it has a habit of sticking, because usually in a sponge you've got the fat that kind of melts out of the sponge, and almost helps to release the cake from the tin. So you really do need to be careful with a fatless sponge like a Swiss roll, so that it does come out. Okay, so I've really well greased that, and I'm going to put that to one side. Right then, next thing that I'm going to need, okay, is 2 eggs. Okay, so I've got my eggs here. I'm going to need a bowl, and I'm going to need my my balloon whisk. Now, I said to you that if you didn't have a balloon whisk or an electric whisk that your parents would let you use, then a spoon is just as good, but you're going to need real big arm muscles, okay, to really whisk it, okay, to really whisk it to get the air in. So the first thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to crack my eggs into the bowl. Now the recipe itself says to crack the eggs and put the sugar in at the same time. Now I'm going to try and get the air into my eggs first of all before I go in with the sugar. So I'm going to use my glass bowl. If you haven't got a glass bowl, it's fine. Just remember the technique that Mrs. Gurney showed you at school, okay, when you're cracking eggs, is just use the back of a butter knife, okay, the back of a butter knife, getting your thumbs in and then prising it apart. But I'm just going to use the side of my bowl, okay, so again, in with my thumbs and put it open. So that's one, and then the second one, like so. Okay, pop those in the bin. Right, now with my balloon whisk, like I said, if you haven't got a balloon whisk, okay, or if you haven't got an electric whisk, that's fine, okay. If you're using an electric whisk at home, just please make sure your parents are aware that you're using it. Be careful of the electricity, okay, because obviously it's number one, it's a fire risk, and also electrocution risk if you get it wet, okay, so just be really careful. Now I'm using a balloon whisk. If you're using a spoon, this is where your arms need a good workout, okay. Now the trick is that you're trying to get the air into it, so already you can see you start getting the air bubbles in there. Okay, but really give it a good whisk. I'm going to swap arms. Okay, it's going to take us a little time to get the air right into this. Try not to spill it all over your counter. Your arms will hurt. slowing up now because my arm hurts. Okay. Right. So keep going until it starts to look really frothy and it's a nice pale colour. So you can start to see mine. Okay. So I've got some nice bubbles going on in there. My advice is use the biggest bowl you can find because I'm spilling mine all over the worktop. Just bear with me 1 second. Right, so keep going. So you want nice frothy eggs. I've done it again. Okay, you want the air really in there. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do then, okay, I'm going to clean up my worktop after I've made a mess everywhere. Then I'm going to get, I want 50 grams of caster sugar. So I've got my scales now. Now, if you haven't got scales, it absolutely doesn't matter because if you've got measuring spoons, then they do the same job. If you don't have measuring spoons, then you can just use a tablespoon, and that's the equivalent of 15 grams. So you can kind of work it back, okay? I'll make sure I put the measurements on the YouTube link as well. So if you are just using standard cutlery spoons, so you can potentially work that back, okay? Right. So I've got my caster sugar. I only want 50 grams, which really isn't an awful lot. Break it up because I don't want big lumps in it. Okay, and with my scales, I'm going to just measure in 50 grams now. $47, $49, $50. There we go. Maths in action. There we go. Right, so what I'm going to do now, because I don't want to whisk all the air out, if I continually beating it, I'm going to make all the air is going to come out of it. Okay, so I'm going to fold my sugar in with my eggs. So I've got that frothy egg texture going on, which is what's going to make our cake rise. Okay, that and the self-raising flour. Right, so I've just folded it. I've not gone crazy, okay, I've just kind of combined it together. I don't want to lose those air bubbles because that's what will make our sponge nice and spongy, okay? So just bear that in mind, so fold on that stage. I'm then going to go with 50 grams of my self-raising flour. So I'm going to put my bowl back on top of my scales, okay, zero it off. And then with my self-raising flour, bear with, can never get the lids off these things. Right, okay, and then we'll just pour it in. Right, it is going to hit that and it is going to take a little bit of the air, so we really have got to be careful that we don't lose too much of the air out of it. Right, I'm just going to take a bit of that flour off because I've got a bit too much in there. 51, that'll do. Okie dokes. Right, so back to the whisk, and I'm folding it through. Okay, folding it through. So you should get a really, really nice dropping consistency, okay? Try and make sure there's no big lumps of flour in there. Okay, and I'm folding it. I'm not whisking it crazy. Okay, I'm folding it. Now, if you're using an electric whisk, my advice to you at this stage is use a spoon or go to your balloon whisk to fold it through, or a spatula. Okay, I wouldn't be using the electric whisk to do that particular part. So from that stage there on in, what we're going to do now, and this is the stage you could add a little bit of vanilla extract if you wanted to. If you wanted to add a bit of food colouring, you could do. I think you've seen maybe on YouTube some of the fancy patterns and things that they add, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to go for the basic sort of sponge today. So at that stage, that's it done. Okay, so I'm going to bring my tray back, and I'm just going to pour my sponge mix on top. Now this is why I haven't made a mahoosive tray full, because it's only a small mixture. Okay, now I'm going to kind of let it roll into the corners. I should be getting a really nice bubbly texture going on the top surface there. So as you can see, I've still got air bubbles going on. I've got it into all of my corners. And at this stage now, I'm going to put it into my oven. Now my oven is on 180 degrees centigrade, 160 fan or gas mark 4. Okay, so it's quite low, all right? So we're going to pop it in the oven and it's going to be in there for 10 to 12 minutes until golden and firm, okay? So don't let it over bake, all right? And just be careful with that. So I'm going to pop that in the oven. Health and safety risk, remember please that the oven will be hot because it's been preheated. So use your oven gloves if you've got them, okay? Make sure you've got supervision from an adult if needed. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in my oven now. And then checking the time. Right, so that's in there. I'm going to have a tidy up and then I'm going to film the next section in a few minutes' time, okay, when that's out. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you in a bit.